Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to AstriCon 2014. And now, a man who needs no introduction, Asterisk Community Director David Duffett.
Well, good morning. Yo, it's great to see you. Welcome to Las Vegas. And do remember what they say about Vegas. They say, what happens in Vegas will have to be justified on an expense report at some later stage. And by the way, just in case you're thinking of tweeting that is original material. And so I'd like full attribution right there, if you don't mind. Yeah. And if you'd like a photo to go with the tweet, it's for you. Good, I'm glad we got that one sorted. Now, I was asked to do a selfie with the AstriCon crowd, and since I'm no good at taking photos and we have a photographer, we're going to do a stage selfie. So if you could all just try and look your most attractive for a minute, we'll just do that selfie real quick. Thank you very much, sir. Great, thank you very much. Excellent, okay, I'm glad we got that sorted out. So, I want to tell you about the conference guide. Please make sure you take a look in there. Those of you who have been to AstriCon before know that the track titles are sometimes just a little bit sketchy. And the reason for that is we get so many excellent contributions and submissions for talks that it's just difficult to categorize them. This year is exceptional. They're exceptionally sketchy. So, rather than take any notice of the track titles, make sure you read the session titled, the individual session titles and descriptions in this book. That's of key importance. It's been a great year for Asterisk. As you remember, last year we brought in Asterisk 12, and Matt and the team and the community have worked very, very hard in making 12 better and optimizing it ready for 13. And we've had a great amount of input from the community and some real positive feedback from the guys from Free PBX, who actually took 12 in, worked with it, and gave us great feedback. So that was excellent. We've got a special guest this year. We're very pleased to welcome back Jim Dude Dixon. If Mark Spencer is the father of Asterisk, and of course he is, then Jim Dude Dixon is the father of low-cost telephony cards. And Dude has literally dusted off some artifacts from his Museum of Telephony Curiosity, and they are on the exhibit floor. So please make sure you go along and say hello to Dude and check out the very first Tormentor card. He's also doing a talk called Viva la Revolution on Friday morning as well. Now, talking of dudes, we also have, as you know, the fastest dude to the dial tone contest. And right now, we only have one time up on the board. So that's very well done to Jose Franco. He's got 4 minutes 30 up on the board. And this year, the fastest dude wins a GoPro Hero 3+ camera. Wait, I'll say that again, and you go, wait, a GoPro Hero 3+ camera. Hey! Second prize is an iPad mini, and third prize are some rather lovely headphones. So there's everything to play for. It's on the exhibit floor, and you've got between 3:30 and 4:45 to get in there. The fastest dude will win. So make sure you rock up. We've had just a few too many people being all strategic, saying, no, they weren't going to do it last night. They were going to wait and see what happened and do it tomorrow. Well, you've only got a limited time, so make sure you get there. Now, this event is, of course, thanks to lots of people, sponsors, exhibitors, all of those folks, but also we have some moderators as well. So when you go into your sessions, you'll see there are moderators in the room, and they'll be helping out. And I just want to say a great thank you to those moderators. They're very, very useful in terms of encouraging feedback. And of course, if you guys don't tell us what you think, it's difficult to make it better every year, as we try to do. Anyway, that's just about all I've got to say. And I thank you very, very much for coming to AstriCon this year. And I want to hand over to Digium, Chief Executive Officer, owner of a very, very interesting English accent. If you get to meet him, you can ask him to sample it. It's none other than Danny Wyndham. Please join me in welcoming him.
Thank you, David. I really appreciate being here today. I won't put you through any more punishment there. I want to welcome you to AstriCon 2014. It is not AstriCon 2009, as David's shirt said, so he actually is a little behind. And I want to thank you for participating and being here. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, and it's actually a beautiful neighborhood to be in, so welcome. I want to thank all of our sponsors. You can thank all of our sponsors by visiting them on the exhibit floor. If it wasn't for the sponsors, we would not be able to put on AstriCon in the way that it's done today. I'd like to particularly thank the platinum sponsor, Digium, as well as the gold sponsors, Vitality and Schmooze. I also want to get a shout out for Tony Lewis for helping recruit our keynote speaker today, so thanks, Tony. So far, pre-con day was yesterday. There was the first ever hackathon that had roughly 40 participants and 10 teams that was deemed a great success. About 50 community leaders took place in DevCon. The distro sessions, there were Digium commercial sessions yesterday, Astris from scratch, training sessions and decap testing went on, last night's reception, and of course the exhibit hall was open as well. But there's lots left to come. Today's keynote speaker will be a real treat. Tomorrow we have Russell Bryant joining us again. There are dozens of tracks and sessions with apparently sketchy session titles, and then the expo floor will be open. Followed by all conference party from 6 till 8, and that is tonight. The Astris update session, which is sort of one of the highlights of the event, Friday at 3 o'clock, and then the wrap-up party Friday night. So hope to see you at each of those things. In tradition, I normally provide an update of what's happening within Digium as the sponsor and maintainer of the Astris open source project. And in short, it's been a great year for Digium. The company is growing, revenues are growing, employee counts are growing, we're expanding our facilities, we've opened logistics centers in Asia and in Europe, we've opened a new logistics center in Alabama. We've spent a lot of energy bringing Astris 13, the long-term release, to market. And there are new cloud efforts underway by Digium, both for products for businesses as well as products for developers. And you're going to hear more about those over the next 2 days. In thinking about where Digium has been, Digium is a company that provides communications platforms and solutions for businesses and for developers. That's what we have traditionally been. And we built out an entire product portfolio around that, all of which ties to Astris in some way. But this past year, we introduced a new portion of Digium, which is Digium Cloud Services. And Digium Cloud Services is an entity for which we will put new cloud offerings in for the future, both for businesses as well as for developers. The flagship offering in Digium Cloud Services today is the cloud version of our SMB UC product known as SwitchFox, along with SIP trunks. Those SIP trunks are available now for developers as well. But there's a new project that has started up within Digium. We made an announcement in a friends and family way to the Astris community a couple of weeks ago, and it's called Respoke. So we believe Astris has been very disruptive in the market, as is evidenced by what happened to a number of the traditional players about the time Astris came onto the scene. But we also believe Respoke will be very disruptive. Astris is about building communications applications. Respoke is about enabling other applications with communications features and functions. So if you think about Digium, our positioning in the marketplace is a company that supports open source and is the sponsor of Astris, but we are also a provider of products for both businesses and developers, and we have those products available in both premises-based models as well as cloud-based models. I want to thank you for supporting this event, and I want to take a little bit of an audience poll. I'm interested in knowing how many of you are here for your very first AstriCon. Just show of hands. Wow. All right, if you were to classify yourself into different interest groups, let's say you're here because your company is an end user of Astris, you're here because your company is a systems reseller or somehow builds a business that includes or is based upon Astris, service providers, or developers. So let's see if hands, developers in the crowd, who classify yourself in that category, service providers, users of Astris, end users, and those who have systems integrators or somehow build your business around Astris. All right, so from here, maybe half of this crowd is here for the very first time, and there was a pretty genuine mix across all of those categories, 20 to 30% of each of the 4 categories, and so a very diversified, mixed group that's here today. I want to introduce our keynote speaker for today. Craig Walker has been a leader, an entrepreneur, a businessman, and a visionary in the area of voice and communications. He was an investor in Silicon Valley, invested in a company called Dialpad, Apparently, things didn't go exactly as he hoped, and he wound up running the company. Got the company to the spot where he sold it to Yahoo. That allowed him then to make some new acquaintances and business partners. Ultimately left Yahoo and started Grand Central. Grand Central was acquired by Google. It now operates as Google Voice. Craig was an entrepreneur in residence at Google following that acquisition and has recently launched another new effort called Uberconference. He is a Berkeley graduate with an MBA and a jurisprudence degree, and he was the 2014 Georgetown Entrepreneurial Excellence Award winner. So give a giant AstriCon welcome to Mr. Craig Walker.
Wow, I feel good. I knew that I wouldn't. I feel good. I knew that I wouldn't.
All right, well, thanks for having me. It's great to be here, everybody. When I was talking to Danny and talking to Mark about joining or coming to do this, they were saying, hey, just talk about what you've seen in the past. You've been in the space for over a dozen years, and kind of what you think of the future. And the good thing is, there was nothing technical in that background, so I know a lot of you are technical, but I won't do anything really technical here. But just kind of like observations over the past 15 years and kind of where I think things are going, it definitely aligns with what I heard from those guys. First things first, and we're, go slide. Okay, so telephony, I just love telephony. So I got into this in 1999. I was with a venture fund, and we invested in this company called Dialpad. But little did I know how much I would fall in love with the telephony market. It is the gift that keeps on giving. It's a multi-trillion-dollar worldwide market. It's generally dominated by former monopolists, meaning that these are companies that don't have a lot of competition or haven't in their past, that don't put consumers first, that charge as much as they possibly can and effectively gouging their users. They have terrible design, terrible UI, and they have a ton of lawyers. I mean, these are guys, if they did things right, none of us would have an opportunity. Since they don't, and there's these massive opportunities to go for us to do better, it's a super, super great gift that just keeps on giving. The world of telephony, it's been fantastic. So, I feel like I've been kind of a lucky observer to all the things that have happened over the last 15 years. So, I was a securities attorney in the 90s and ended up joining a venture fund, and we invested in this company, Dialpad, and Dialpad was doing PC to phone calling, making cheap international phone calls. That was really my first introduction to telephony and to voice over IP. The world changed. I'll go through this. I ended up actually running Dialpad, launching Yahoo Voice, Grand Central, Google Voice, Uberconference, and then we just launched another product called Switch. So I've had an opportunity to kind of see things evolve, and it's fun to come here and I've run into a bunch of people that we've worked with over the last, 10, 12 years, and it's just great to kind of see the same faces again and again, even in different roles. So I'm going to go through kind of what I saw as kind of the history of the evolution of kind of a voice over IP and communications. And for me, it really started back in 1996. It was net to phone. And net to phone was, and this is what was the world like back then, right? 33.6 kilobit modems, and you could never get 33 out of it either. It was always less than that. 1 in 5 Americans were online at the time, but NASDAQ was cranking. The technology was heating up. Netscape had gone public the year before. Everyone saw kind of the internet as this monster thing, and things were starting to really, really pop. So net2phone came out with this H323 client. You'd have to download this big thing, took forever. You had a Windows 95 machine. You'd have to reboot your machine to make it work. The quality was terrible. It was really, really bad, but it was low cost. And this is, VoIP has done a great job of kind of taking out those, the monopolist's ability to squeeze everything out of the end user. It gave it back to get a little more power to the end user. So where international calls used to cost 50, 60 cents a minute, now you're able to basically pay the price of a local call for your dial-up, and then you'd only pay the last leg. So you're able to get it for, 20 cents instead of 60. So it was a great improvement if you were doing a lot of calls there. Go to 1999, hey, there was a open source PBX project started called Asterisk. PBXs were so complex and still are, difficult to use, proprietary technology, so to have something open source that anyone can use, anyone can develop on, anyone can now implement, spawned obviously this, and a whole lot of stuff spawned from this. This was a really important part in the history. In 2000, so let's go to 2000. What was the world like? Well, we got 56 kilobit modems. Again, you could never get 56 out of them, but that's what they were. Almost half the US was online. NASDAQ hits an all-time high on March 10th, 2000, like 5,500, something like that. 15 years later, it still hasn't reached that again. Really interesting. But we launched this product called Dialpad, and I was just an investor. And Dialpad used some interesting technology to split the H.323 stack. So a lot of it, in fact, most of it was done on the back end, and all you needed from the client was just a small 180 kilobit Java applet that basically was just a dial pad. So you punch in phone numbers, it would ring. We gave free calls away to the US. It took off like crazy. This is back when calls to the US at a wholesale level cost about 2.5 cents a minute. It was pretty expensive back then. Quality was poor to okay, but it was easy to use. It was very low cost. Ended up doing over 1 billion minutes in our first year, ended up having over 12 million users. The company itself ended up raising $68 million in its first 6 months. We'll get to the rest of the story in a second. But 2001 came, right? And so 2001 comes, the bubble burst, NASDAQ crashes. This company that's raised $68 million no longer can go raise another $68 million. Everything's upside down, and they're looking around the table, and they need someone to go in and basically try to lower cost and try to sell Dialpad before we have to turn off the lights. And yours truly was the one who stupidly raised his hand of like, yeah, I'm happy to do it. And that was supposed to be a 3-month project. It ended up being a 4-year like labor of love, but just absolute torture of taking a company from 150 people down to 15, taking it through a Chapter 11, trying to get someone to invest in it in 2001 to finance that Chapter 11. Yeah, so they raised 68 million, but they were able to spend 85 million or something in the same amount of time. So it was a really crazy time, but it was one of those things where as a first-time CEO, it was kind of like the best opportunity to be a CEO because you're effectively operating on a corpse, right? So like, if it were to die, no one was gonna blame me. So I was feeling pretty, it was only upside at this point. And then kind of teaches you how to be really scrappy and cheap. Like, 1, we had a bunch of layoffs. 2, we renegotiated every contract. 3, we canceled the Alhambra water contract for $30 a month. We canceled the San Jose Mercury News for $17 a month. Like, we were canceling everything. It kind of allowed us to survive and to focus on what was important. Yeah, so this was my first month on the job. There was this writer at the Chronicle, Dave Lazarus, who was pretty influential at the time, and he loved when things were crashing to write these big stories about them. So there was this big story about Dialpad looking like a dot bomb, and he ends with the quote of "Internet telephony was a good idea, ... while it lasted," which I think is awesome because maybe Dialpad wasn't going to be the big success, but internet telephony wasn't going anywhere. You look forward to 2003, and yeah, it was still a dark time economically, but more and more people were online. At this point, about 2/3 of America was online. Broadband penetration was going up, so about 40% were on broadband. And Skype came out, and Skype, coming out at the right time when you had that much broadband, came out with a broadband service. And the most amazing thing about Skype was it sounded great. Like that first Skype call you ever made, you're like, holy shit, this is freaking voice over IP, are you kidding me? Like, it was amazing. So that really, that was a kind of a super benchmark piece of the evolution of voice over IP to me, because it really showed that it could be super high quality, and obviously it took off like crazy. Was really easy to use, had good design, had all like kind of these nice attributes that you know, kind of like next-gen telephony should have. Fast forward, after 4 years of painstakingly putting Dialpad back together again, we ended up actually turning a profit, built the team back up to almost 60 people, and then Skype was kicking ass on Yahoo and everyone else because they had added instant messaging and all these other things to Skype that then Yahoo had to respond by getting voice inside of their messenger in order to try to slow down Skype's advances. So Yahoo came and bought Dialpad, which was great. Sadly, Yahoo never really did that much with it. It was a little bit of a neat feature that they kind of had in there, but they never promoted it. At the time, Yahoo had a really, really good, deep relationship with SBC. They used to do this thing, SBC Yahoo DSL, and SBC hated the idea of Yahoo just having this really disruptive pricing on this really disruptive phone service, and kind of got them to not really promote it. So good for Dialpad, not great for the end user. So I left, and 2006 started this company called Grand Central, and the whole idea behind Grand Central was, hey, you know, voice over IP is great. You know, it's cheaper. And everything in voice over IP, kind of like to that point, had really been focused on how do we do stuff cheaper? How do we make phone calls cheaper? You know, and then, you know, carriers started responding, international rates started coming down, but still, I looked at voice over IP as this awesome opportunity to have killer features, you know, things that you couldn't do with a normal phone. And if you going back to that original idea of carriers as non-innovators, you know, the carrier's not innovating on service levels or on features. You know, what was the last carrier feature that was rolled out? Three-way calling, caller ID. You know, I think that's about it. Call waiting, maybe. So Grand Central was, okay, we're going to give you a phone number, and this phone number is going to ring you wherever you want to be rung. And you can, you know, if my wife calls, ring me at these 3 places. If my boss calls, ring me at these 5 places. If, you know, unknown number, send it to voicemail. Different voicemail greetings for different people, and really move all that kind of control and feature and functionality to the web, which is a really nice interface. And it's funny, I just found this was our original UI, but where you can actually do some interesting stuff with it. You're not constrained to the 12 buttons on the phone for your features. So Grand Central launched in 2006. Lucky for us, Google was looking at the same space and wanted to do something interesting with their Google Talk product and weren't exactly sure what to do. So they actually acquired us in 2007. So it was kind of the exact opposite of the hell of running Dialpad for 4 years. It was a really nice, smooth process. You know, a year after we launched, we were now part of Google. So we relaunched that as Google Voice, and now Google Voice is transitioning into Google Hangouts. But for a while there, Google Voice was this pretty interesting product that gave you a phone number and moved all these features to the cloud. But what else was going on? 2009, Twilio launches, and we have now API-based communications. And so, you know, it's kind of been this transition from hardware to software to APIs. And so Twilio, and then more recently Plevo and Layer and Respoke, all these things that now enable the developer to be able to build all these killer, you know, pretty complex telephony functionality into their product without having to be experts at that part of the business. And we always felt, you know, that was, you know, kind of going back to Dialpad, going back to Grand Central, and even today with Uberconference and Switch, you know, we kind of have that expertise of working with carriers and managing, you know, managing quality and doing least cost routing and all this stuff. But it is a complicated process, and we have a relatively big team to do it that has a lot of experience. But for a developer just wanting to come out of the gate and create something amazing, you don't have to worry about that anymore. You don't have to worry about the back end. All you got to worry about are some APIs. So it's really, that was kind of, Twilio was the one who started it, but it's really become interesting, particularly from a developer's perspective. Then what happened? 2011, WebRTC. And WebRTC is, you know, I was lucky enough to work with a lot of these guys when I was at Google. It was the real-time communication group there. And in 2010, Google bought this company, Global IP Sound, that had this killer voice engine and had some interesting codecs in there. And then in 2011, they open sourced it, and it became what WebRTC is today. And WebRTC is, one of those things where I look at it and it's just an absolute game changer. In that, as a startup or as a developer, we always wanted to have killer codecs. We always wanted to have the killer voice engine that guys like Global IP Sound created. They were too expensive. It was hundreds of thousands of dollars to license that stuff. The fact that Google spent, I don't recall what they spent, call it, I won't even guess, but to go buy that company and then to open source that for us, that's awesome. Now we have it all available to us, and it sounds amazing. The Opus codec's fantastic, and it runs in Chrome, and now it's running in Firefox and Opera. And there's companies that are making plugins to make it run in IE and in Safari. And it's just this amazing thing where you no longer have to download a client. You no longer have to configure anything. It just lives in the browser. And so we built it into our product. So Uberconference, which we launched in 2012, really we were trying to change audio conferencing, which is still 80% of all conference minutes are audio only, just people on the phone, dialing in, entering a PIN, hearing a beep, not knowing who's there, and starting this horrible conference experience. So we wanted to make it much better. So we got rid of PINs. We give you a URL so you can see who's on the call. And if you were to hover over a guy, it'll pull up their LinkedIn profile and their latest tweets and their Google Plus profile and other stuff that we can pull from the web about them. If you want to record a call or kick someone out or mute it or lock the room, you can do that all through the web. You don't need to know anything about how to, what is the magic code in my phone to mute or to record the call. No, it's all just web-based. And that's using WebRTC in the back end. So if you want to dial in, great. If you want to join from your computer, even better, because then that'll be an excellent WebRTC experience. And then lastly, we launched this company called Switch, which is a cloud-based unified communications product totally focused on the Google Apps marketplace. So Google Apps customers, you've already moved your email to the cloud, you've already moved your documents to the cloud, your calendar's in the cloud, all this stuff. And it's a very vibrant, growing base of users, has never had anything really built for them. So we really wanted to build this specifically focused on that, and to let any business, whether you're a 5-person shop or a 50,000-person shop, have this amazing kind of like cloud-based unified communication product that's really focused around the mobile employee, which every employee is now a mobile employee. They all got mobile phones. The amount of time you spend working, sitting at your desk, probably goes down 15% a year. And so having a phone system that supports that is great. But so that kind of like is the arc of the things that I've seen. But then the other question is, what's coming next? And I think it's always hard to predict the future. I mean, a lot of people say WebRTC is, it's just a dream, it's not going to happen, because you're looking at it, or they're looking at it from where it is today. And a lot of people have made that mistake. So if you look at, here's a memo from Western Union in 1876 saying how the telephone has too many shortcomings to be seriously considered as a means of communication. Yeah, that was probably true in 1876, but it's going to get better, and it did, obviously. And so predicting the future is a little tough. Ken Olson, the president of DEC, 1977, no reason for any individual to have a computer in their home. Yeah, in 1977, that's probably true, but the world changes, networks improve, and reasons to have it increase. So looking at predictions, like who've been good at making predictions? If these guys who are experts have been bad, I'll go to the comic book guys. So 1931, we get the Dick Tracy wristwatch. Fast forward, Apple iWatch, 2014. It's here. The Jetsons, 1962, doing a video call. Boom. Skype, 2011, does it. What else we got? Oh, movie Blade Runner, 1982. They had this killer phone, and even was supposedly provided by Bell, if you look at the logo. But the vid phone, and that was pretty amazing. Oh, look, it exists. So they've actually done a pretty good job of predicting this stuff. Hey, reading your newspaper on a piece of glass, Flipboard. One last one, Back to the Future. This is the thing I love. The guy's on the video, and it has this little feed below him of like, what does he like? Steak, Mexican food, where does he live? How many kids? What favorite sports teams? And that's, one of the things we try to do at Uberconference is pull in this external information about a guy. So someone calls into a conference, there's nothing more annoying than just one. The worst is you don't see anything, you just hear a beep. And you're like, okay, did someone just join? Did someone just leave? Horrible. But the second worst thing is just seeing caller ID, seeing a phone number, and it may say, like Livermore, California, phone number. That phone number or that caller ID should tie into as much additional information as we can possibly get. So we'll go through, caller ID comes in, we'll check the organizer's address book, see if we can identify who that person is. We'll kick off a bunch of social searches to pull in information about that guy. And when you have a really rich social caller ID of, hey, I got a call from this guy, or this guy joined this conference call, who is it? And there's his LinkedIn profile. That's awesome. Not only who he is, what he does, where he's been, it just makes it a much better experience. So, where are we now? A couple trends that I like to look at. One is tablets have grown faster than even the iPad has grown 2 or 3 times as fast as the iPhone in its first 8 quarters, which is X number of times faster than the iPod. Obviously, an important, very important piece, and virtually I'd say every single one of you probably has one of those. Secondly, mobile phones, selling more mobile phones than PCs. This has already happened. Third, traditional voice lines are dropping. Landlines going away. Minutes used on desk phones dropping every single year. You talk to the CFO or an IT guy at a big company, ask them how many average minutes are being used by an employee sitting at their desk on the phone. It goes down every single year. And they're like, how do I get around this? Oh, and by the way, their employees are bringing their own phones to work. Whether it's supported or not, they're using them. So you might as well figure out a way to support those. But I'll still posit that voice remains the key. Like, voice is still the center of the center. Like, there's so many different ways to communicate today. You can write a blog and anyone can see it. You can send a tweet. Anyone who follows you can read it. You're friends with X number of people on Facebook, way more than you're really friends with, and you can communicate that way, but it's very kind of like broadcasty. But it keeps getting a little more centered in on who are the people you'll actually trade an email with. It's a smaller group. Who are the people you'll trade an IM with or have a conversation with? Even a much smaller group. SMS, who are the people you'll text and text back? Smaller group. The center of the core there is who are the people you will pick up the phone and talk to on the phone. Because you used to all this kind of like noise conversation used to be done on the phone. That's the minutes that are going away. But the minutes that are still being used there, those are those core, most important conversations, and they're going nowhere. So I think voice remains super important. So if we have mobile being more important, tablets being more important, desk phones being less important, and voice still being important, I think that builds for building products that pertain to that. And this is kind of like a chart of the evolution that we talked about. But the things that are now available to you as developers and to all of us to be able to come up with whatever service and feature that we think is important and to try it and to get it built and to get it into the market without having to invest $1 trillion, or not $1 trillion, but a ton of money into proprietary hardware and IT teams and all this stuff, that it's now you can just experiment and develop easily, really makes for a lot of interesting stuff. So I think the keys are, right now, I think WebRTC changes everything. I think, WebRTC unlocks this even further, and having platforms that enable WebRTC without you having to be an expert in it is great. And as kind of software eats telephony, there's Mark Andreessen at Andreessen Horowitz, who's actually one of our investors, has this whole thesis on software eats the world. Like, software is eating every single industry. And the same is true for telephony. Used to be a hardware-based world. It's now a software-based world. It's now even an API-based world. But doing software and making a killer product requires that you actually don't just take off kind of like the bellhead telephony mindset. You can't just have features and total like nerdy IT stuff. You have to build a great web product too. It has to look good. It has to feel good. It has to be intuitive. And there's great web developers out there, and there's great telephony guys out there, and very rarely did those Venn diagrams intersect. You'd have either really good telephony or really good web, and very rarely were they overlapped. Now, with all these APIs and platforms that you can use without having to be a telephony expert, it's a lot easier to get that intersection. So just like, I'm a big believer in design and usability. On the left is a screenshot of the Avaya PBX configuration screen. On the right is our switch configuration screen of how you control your IVR. Obviously, we think the one on the right's a little easier to understand and that any admin can do. The one on the left, I wouldn't even begin to try. We also have one where we make fun of Microsoft Lync a little bit. That's link conferencing on the left. Okay, it's cool. They give me a link. I can see that there's people in this room, but they all look the same, and it's certainly not very compelling. And then we have Uberconference on the right, where we actually make it a really rich interface. We show you who's talking. But really, at the end of the day, it's a super exciting time to be in this space. The stuff that Digium is doing to enable you guys to be successful is fantastic. And like I'd say, the future is now. Like, here's our little Back to the Future dashboard. October 21st, 2015 is coming up. Like, that was the future of the hoverboards and the video screens and all the stuff. So I'm excited to see what happens in the next year. But that's my little walk through past and future of VoIP. So thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Craig. Thank you. Very, very enjoyable and insightful. I just wanted to tell you what the Fastest Dude Challenge actually is. There was a few questions about that last night. You've got an asterisk set up. All the sample configuration files are there. You're just missing the contents of sip.conf, extensions.conf, and voicemail.conf. And all you've got to do is just put enough configuration in there to allow the D phone, the Digium phone, to make a call in, leave a voicemail, and retrieve the voicemail. The challenge is that simple, so you could be the fastest dude. I also wanted to tell you about one schedule change. Out of all the printing and everything we've done, there is just one schedule change for you to be aware of. I know there's probably a few fans in the audience of Alison, the voice of Asterisk. In fact, put your hand up if you're a fan of Alison, the voice of Asterisk. I thought there might be a few big fans there. Well, Alison's talk, which was going to be on Thursday, is now on Friday morning at 10 a.m. in the Service Provider and Contact Center track, and it's called The New Rules of IVR. So just when you thought you knew what all the rules of IVR are, Alison's going to pitch up and tell you what the new rules are. Now, what she did was she kindly accommodated a switch we needed to do, where we wanted to put Ben Klang, has switched with her, and so Ben Klang's talk that was going to be on the Friday in that slot is now on the Thursday at 2:25 p.m. in the Business and Case Studies track. So all that's happened is Ben Klang and Alison have done a little switch. So keep that in mind. And by the way, if you want to see them talking together, they're actually doing a talk together as well. Anyway, we've had a very, very successful hackathon, the very first one here at AstriCon, masterminded by none other than Billy Cheer, and I'd like you to invite him up to talk more about that right now.
You got theme music. That is exciting. So, yeah, thank you, David. I think we have some slides. We did have an excellent hackathon, tons of participation. We even had many people coming into the room to hang out that were not even necessarily coders, but just kind of wanted to see what was going on. So thank you to everyone who participated, from the developers writing apps to everyone who helped out. It was very exciting. We had software apps built on Asterisk, built on Bespoke, and built on Clarify. And we just had lots of cool apps. Up to 10 apps were submitted. And so yesterday we gave away prizes for the best Asterisk app, the best Bespoke app, and the best Clarify app. And then today, right now, we will announce the grand prize winners as voted by our judges. But what we are also doing is a popular choice award where everyone in this room will get to actually vote for their favorite app. So you can actually pull out your phone right now, and if you go to bit.ly/AstriConVote, this is the Challenge Post website where all of our apps are hosted. You can scroll through there. You can register with one click using your Facebook or GitHub, or you can sign up for Challenge Post. And just vote for your favorite apps. The app that gets the most votes will win our Popular Choice Award, awarded during tomorrow's keynote, which is the free tickets to next year's AstriCon and a $100 Amazon card. So right now, I do want to announce the grand prize winners. So what I will show is on this next slide here, this is kind of what it looks like when you log in. These are the apps. You can go here, click on that Vote for This Submission button. That's like the, yeah, awesome. So without further ado, I want to invite all the winners on. We'll give them a big round of applause, and then we'll take photos and kind of give away prizes kind of after we dismiss for the crowd. But the winners, the third place winner was Easy Mass Dialer, Philip Mullis. Come on up. The second place winner, I also want to invite to come on down. So yeah, come on right up, Phil. Second place winner. And this one I had a special affinity for. This is Voice Ghost. Travis, come on down. Travis, during his presentation, part of this app was you could leave a ransom message. His ransom message was, please leave $5 in the Cherry Lounge if you ever want to see Billy Chia alive. So thank you to whoever left the $5. I'm here. And first place, Yo Pet. So come on down, Tim Panton. First place grand prize winner as awarded by our judges. And Tim's, in particular, was very interesting. He could talk to a parrot, and it's kind of like Yo, but Yo Pet talking to your parrot. And you guys can look at these apps and all the rest of the apps on the Challenge Post website and vote for your favorites. Let's give these guys another round of applause. This is great, and I'll invite David to come back up and just give us the final word here as we're heading off before we head off to our sessions. And we'll hang out right here, guys.
So thanks very much, Billy. So do vote on that, and we'll be awarding that prize tomorrow, as Billy said. And we'll also be awarding the fastest dude to the dial tone prizes as well. If you are tweeting, please remember to use the hashtag AstriCon so people can see what you're saying about AstriCon. And also, please remember to give us feedback. When you go into the individual sessions and you see the individual speakers, then we're very, very interested in your feedback, because after all, feedback is the breakfast of champions. Anyway, I'm hoping to see you all again tomorrow morning when we've got another great keynote, got Russell Bryant. If you'd like to talk to Craig Walker, by the way, he is going to be loitering around all morning here at AstriCon, so you can track him down and say hello and ask questions if you like to. But with that, I'll just say have a great AstriCon today. Enjoy the amazing tracks we've got. And remember, when you're choosing which talk to go to, read the session title and description. That is the key. I'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you.